You thought Meghan Markle had survived the worst? Think again, because Colin Jost didn't just roast her on live TV, he obliterated her entire public image in under 10 minutes. One savage SNL monologue exposed everything from her Diana cosplay to her endless PR rebrands, and the internet hasn't been the same since. This wasn't just a joke, it was a takedown years in the making. And if you think you've heard it all, you haven't. Not even close. Meghan Markle built an empire on soft lighting, dramatic monologues, and calling herself misunderstood. But when Colin Jost called her the PR princess, the public finally exhaled. Years of overproduced Netflix docuseries, $20 jam jars, and tearful Spotify podcast collapsed in one SNL segment. And honestly, it was overdue. Jost's brutal line, "She's not the people's princess, she's a wannabe Diana with Wi-Fi," wasn't just comedy. It was the moment people stopped pretending. Meghan Markle, not to be confused with Meghan Sussex, had tried to reboot herself as a modern Diana, but where Diana had heart and humility, Meghan had curated content and a ring light. One viewer even joked, "She gives a TED Talk every time she toasts bread," and the worst part, that wasn't far off. Meghan turned every moment into a movement and every sentence into a slogan. But the world finally caught on, and this time, no soft piano track could save her. The roast didn't end at SNL, it exploded online and quietly in boardrooms, too. Industry insiders started using a new phrase, Meghan fatigue, when Netflix and Spotify execs start dodging your calls after you just signed multi-million-dollar deals. You've got a problem. It turns out, people don't want 14 episodes about your inner growth journey filmed from 5 angles in a Montecito mansion. They want authenticity, not overproduced trauma. Even her fans started backing off. Influencers who once posted "Yas Queen" now just hit mute. Meghan Markle, the queen of "I don't know what this means, but I'm going to say it anyway." And let's not forget Harry giving speeches like he's still an active royal. For what? He's basically cosplaying Prince at this point. It's pathetic. Charles was never a deadbeat dad. The article that claimed that sounded like it was ghostwritten by Meghan herself. Meghan sold the fairy tale but forgot the public eventually. Wakes up. Let's be honest, Meghan aligning herself with Princess Diana was always a risky move. Diana was loved because she never asked to be a symbol, she became one through grace, pain, and raw humanity. Meghan, she walked into the royal family with a Netflix pitch in one hand and a podcast contract in the other, and then tried to trademark. The trauma, Jost's punchline didn't just land, it exposed the truth. You can't brand grief. And the more Meghan tried to channel Diana, the more people saw the cracks. The tiara wasn't earned, it was staged. Even die-hard royal critics started admitting Diana never needed to monetize her heartbreak. Meghan, on the other hand, seems to release a new project every time public sympathy dips. Meghan's PR machine tried to copy the Princess of Hearts but forgot one thing, Diana wasn't playing a role, Meghan. She's still stuck in rehearsals. Colin Jost didn't just roast Meghan, he flipped the audience's entire perception of her. And worse, he made it funny, because once you're a meme, you're not a movement anymore, you're just trending content. Hashtags like #PRPrincess and #FakeDiana weren't created by haters. They came from regular people who were simply done with the show. Meghan, who once demanded the world take her seriously, had become a punchline. And Harry, he caught strays too. Why is he giving speeches like he's an active royal? It's pathetic. One viewer even said, Charles didn't marry a yacht girl. And you know what? That one hurt. The laughter was loud, but the silence after was louder. Meghan's brand didn't just take a hit, it slipped into cultural freefall. Because when even your fans start laughing ... it's already too late. If there's one comparison Meghan Markle can't escape, it's the one with Kate Middleton, and unfortunately, it's not getting better. Colin just didn't need to spell it out. He just dropped the line, Kate raises 3 kids and smiles. Meghan gives a TED Talk every time she toasts bread. Boom, that one hit like a freight train. Kate doesn't post cryptic quotes or film moody black and white portraits to sell skincare. She just shows up. Meghan, on the other hand, acts like she's launching a rebrand every time she breathes, and the public sees the difference. Meghan's overexposure isn't bold anymore, it's exhausting. The more she talks, the more powerful Kate's silence becomes. Meghan said she wanted to break the mold, but maybe the mold wasn't the problem. Maybe it's the fact that every moment with Meghan feels like a marketing campaign while Kate simply lives the role. After the SNL takedown, you'd expect Meghan's usual supporters to rush to her defense. But this time, cricket's influencers went quiet. Journalists who once praised her as a feminist icon, nothing, even her media friends did. Silent, that's not a PR crisis, that's a red flag. Because silence doesn't mean they've turned against her, it means they've stopped caring. And when people stop caring, you're in trouble. One feminist columnist who had written glowing op-eds about Meghan for years just tweeted 3 words after the sketch. He wasn't wrong. Ouch. Meghan's entire brand was built on public validation. But if the applause fades and all you're left with is curated Instagram posts and overpriced jam, what do you really have? The real danger to Meghan isn't being mocked, it's being ignored. And right now, the silence around her is deafening. Behind the scenes, Meghan wasn't laughing. According to insiders close to her team, she felt ambushed and humiliated by the SNL sketch. She reportedly called it misogynistic, tasteless, and believed it crossed a line. But here's the real kicker. The louder Meghan pushed back, the more the public pulled away. The sketch didn't mock her for being a woman, it mocked her for being a walking PR campaign. But instead of letting it blow over, Meghan made the classic mistake. She tried to control the narrative again. And that only proved Colin Jost's point. The public saw her reaction not as strength, but as insecurity. She could dish it out too. The royal family, the press, and anyone who questioned her story but couldn't take a joke from a comedian doing what comedians do. That right there cemented the shift. Once you're viewed as someone who can't laugh at yourself, your relatable persona falls apart. The irony? Meghan could have owned the moment. She could have laughed it off, clapped back with class, or simply ignored it. Instead, she let the sketch expose something deeper, that her carefully managed image is just that, managed, overmanaged. Meghan's instinct to respond, to spin, to sanitize those used to be her tools, now they're her liabilities. The public is tired of press releases disguised as empowerment. And when even the jokes make more sense than her brand message, it's not just a PR problem, it's a trust issue. Let's cut through the glitter and filters. What Colin Jost really did was peel back the final layer of Meghan's illusion. He didn't attack her as a person, he exposed how performative her public presence has become. The emotional voiceovers, the curated vulnerability, the endless retelling of the same story with a new aesthetic, none of it feels authentic anymore. That's not connection, that's content. Meghan built a brand around being real, raw, and relatable. But somewhere along the way, that brand became a product. And products, no matter how glossy, get stale. The same story. I was silenced, I broke free, now I tell my truth. Except it's been told over and over and over again. The audience didn't change. The story did. It became predictable. And predictability kills interest. Even her fans started noticing. Every podcast, every interview, every project circles back to Meghan. Guests become props. Conversations turn into self-therapy. And people began asking the obvious, is this still about empowerment, or is it just about staying relevant? When your entire image is based on vulnerability, it has to feel genuine. But Meghan's struggles started to sound like sound bites. When pain becomes a PR tool, audiences stop sympathizing. They start analyzing, and the more they analyze, the more they see through the cracks. Colin Jost's joke wasn't just timely, it was necessary. Because someone had to say it. When authenticity becomes a brand strategy, it stops being real. While Meghan and her team scrambled behind the scenes, trying to label the SNL sketch as unfair, the royal family didn't say a single word. No outrage, no rebuttal, not even a royal shrug. But according to a palace insider quoted in a British tabloid, the reaction behind closed doors was something else entirely. Quiet satisfaction, and another source didn't even sugarcoat it. The joke wrote itself. She's been playing Diana for years. That silence was strategic, powerful, devastating. For years, Meghan and Harry have taken jabs at the firm, framing it as cold, out of touch, and emotionally distant. But now, the royal family didn't need to defend itself. Because for the first time, the public did it for them, and here's the twist. This wasn't a political takedown. It wasn't a tabloid scandal. It was Saturday Night Live. A comedy sketch landed harder than any press headline Meghan ever fought against. Because it wasn't the press dragging her, it was regular people finally saying what they'd been thinking. It was America's favorite late-night show pulling back the curtain and revealing what many were too polite to admit, that Meghan's image has become exhausting, not empowering. And let's not forget, when the royals don't react, it leaves a void, a silence, and that silence let Jost's monologue echo even louder. While Meghan scrambled to protect her brand, the palace just carried on, sipping tea and watching the public do what they never dared to. Laughed out the Meghan Markle era isn't over, but it's definitely entered a different chapter, a colder, quieter one. After years of controlling her story, of turning every whisper into a headline, Meghan has lost the one thing that made her powerful: the audience's belief. Colin Jost didn't expose some deep scandal. He didn't bring new facts. He simply highlighted what was already there: the disconnect between Meghan's message and her methods, between what she claims to be and how she presents herself, the constant branding, the emotional monologues, the calculated authenticity. It's all starting to feel like a rerun. And when the audience starts to anticipate your next move, they stop caring, they scroll past, they laugh. That's what's happening now. Hollywood insiders, media executives, and even Meghan's former allies aren't angry, they're just tired. And in the world of fame, fatigue is fatal. Now, instead of being the woman who escaped the palace, Meghan is turning into the woman who can't stop explaining why she left. That's not mystery. That's overexposure, and in a world where people consume faster than ever, overexposure doesn't breed sympathy, it breeds apathy. Meghan once walked away from royalty to build her own platform. But what happens when even that platform starts to shake? What happens when every launch feels like a rebrand of the same old message? You become less of a movement and more of a meme. And once you become a meme, the story no longer belongs to you. So Meghan wanted to control the narrative, but this time, the joke wrote itself. No palace press release, no dramatic docuseries. Just one comedian, one punchline, and a public that finally stopped clapping. If this is the start of Meghan's fall from grace, trust us, what comes next will be even messier. But hey, we'll save that for another video.